Okay. First, what did anybody? First, did everybody enjoy last night's speaker? Yeah, I think he hit where we are. So, second, did everybody see both TV channels news coverage? What's up? Tell you what, we're gonna go ahead. Yeah, let's hit that one first.
If you grow that out a little bit, you go right hair color, you can join us.
Santa, you sit down, please.
Santa's dressed a little more casual for this visit to the VA Medical Center. He's here walking a half dozen other jolly old elves. Bringing cheer to patients. It doesn't matter the time of year. The mission of the Santa America organization is to bring joy to those with disabilities and those dealing with tough times.
We've seen a lot of smiles today on folks that look like maybe they haven't had an opportunity to smile for a while. And we've even gotten some laughter, and that's what this is about.
John Shuey heads up the nonprofit. He's on a bigger mission this week. Dozens of Santas from all over the country are here for 3 days of sensitivity training, learning from medical professionals how to deal with emotional visits.
The biggest stumbling block for many people are saying, I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing, or how do I deal with this?
This visit is a little break from the training and a chance to put into practice what they do best.
God bless you. Thank you for your service.
Okay.
This Silverado may look exactly like this one. It's the difference.
And then this was Channel 5, Betsy Webster, who was here most of the afternoon. You did skip the ad, yeah.
When we found out there was a convention of Santa's helpers from across the country right here in the metro, we just had to go. But what KCTV5's Betsy Webster found is not all candy canes and sugar plums.
Give me a ho, 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 ho! What's it spelled?
The 30 or so white-bearded men and their Mrs. Clauses are at Overland Park for the Santa America Symposium, and they brought a mix of off-season fashion takes. There's Renaissance Santa.
This is a muffin hat.
Lone Star Santa.
We all have red cowboy hats.
And Jersey Shore Santa.
Fits in well on the boardwalk.
The Kris Kringle doppelgangers came from around the nation.
That's Cajun. It's A-G-A-U-X. I'm from Louisiana. Santa Vern from Minnesota. Oh! Yeah, you betcha.
The real Santa is here. You just have to figure out who it is.
But their vacation isn't all fun and reindeer days.
It's a working vacation.
Santa America is a group with a mission, bringing not just cheer, but love, hope, and joy to those who need it most. And they want to do it with more than just goodwill, but also an education with experts.
We do hospice visits to children at Christmas time.
I said, what would you like for Christmas this year? And he looked at me and I gave him a hold his hand. And he said, Santa, I don't want to die. I'm 13 years old.
The biggest problem that I think a lot of people have dealing with special needs or particularly terminally ill people or children is, what do I say? What if I say something wrong?
You have to be prepared to handle that. You can't turn to Jello while you're there. So that's part of what we're going to talk about. I mean, you're too sweet already.
Those who arrived early visited the Kansas City VA hospital to spread some smiles there. PTSD in veterans and kids is one topic on the conference agenda, along with autism in children and bereavement.
I haven't joined yet because I'm not sure if emotionally I can handle it.
It's emotionally draining, they say, but rewarding, with every hug making their hearts just a little fuller. Betsy Webster, KCTV5 News.
I gotta tell you, I think she captured what we're all about. Probably better than any story we've ever had. So those are both on the Facebook pages for Santa America, so you can link to them and share them, and please share shamelessly. Pass that out. we're going to kick off pretty quick here. This morning, we have a wonderful speaker here, Dr. Jack Cicero, right here. Jack's formal bio is in the notebook, right behind the tab that says death-free from bereavement, I believe, or hospice. It says hospice, excuse me. But I'm going to do a different intro. My intro is very personal. Jack and I have known each other since 2006, when Jack was in Branson, Missouri, for the first ever Santa convention. We had one full day before the normal convention to do Santa America training. And Jack was our speaker on death-free from bereavement. Did a fabulous job. And two things. One thing that came out of that day, we asked the question of the group. I had two questions for the group to begin with. I said, one, how many of you make hospice visits? And there were a few hands. The second question was, how many of you would like to make hospice visits? There were a lot of hands. And my question was simple, then why don't you? And then we started asking around the room, and what do you think the top three answers were?
How do we know about it?
I'm afraid I won't know what to say. I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing, and I'm afraid I'll emotionally break down while I'm there. Those were head and shoulders the top three. In 2016, I did a seminar in Branson that we only got an hour workshop, and I asked the same questions. And then I asked for, around the room, what do you think the top three answers were? Same thing. So I would hazard to guess that if I did that here today, we're going to get the same answers. And that's what we're hoping to address as we go through this session, to help you all figure in your own self how to make this work. I had my struggle as well. And I always mess up the date. I believe it was December the 12th, 2014. I was at Fort Riley visiting the wounded warriors. And part of that day included going to the hospital and going through every ward in the hospital. So we did emergency, we did pediatrics, we did maternity, we went to see the wounded soldiers, we did all of it. And as we're going from ward to ward in the hospital, it was the day of the Sandy Hook shooting. And the news on the TV just kept getting worse and worse and worse. It was a really hard day for me there, and then knowing what was going on just compounded it. When the day was over, I was blessed that my brother-in-law had gone with me. And at the end of the day, I handed him the car keys. I said, you have to drive. Over the next 3 days, I sunk deeper and deeper. And finally, I was like, I don't know what to do. So I called Jack. You probably don't even remember the call.
Actually, I do.
I called Jack and said, Jack, you gotta help me, I'm sinking. I said, I'm ready to hang up the suit, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm done. And I said, I need some help to get me out of this. And the first thing he told me to do was the simplest thing in the world that just didn't even occur to me. Turn off the stupid TV. You have to get away from it. And then he helped me with some other steps that helped me. And over the course of the next week, I changed part of my Santa presentation when I went out to visit groups because of what he taught me. And one of the things was when I get done now if I'm doing a home visit where there's a dozen kids and I'm done with the kids, then I address the adults. And I say, here's what I need you to do. I said, tonight, I want you to go home and hug your kids. And after that, I need you to hug your kids. And after that, please hug your kids. And tomorrow morning when you wake up, hug your kids and don't ever stop. Because I'm of the firm belief that that young man had the right touches at the right point in his life, we would not know where Sandy Hook, Connecticut is. So, anyway, Jack got me through that, and made me the man I am today. No. So with that, I'm going to leave this to Jack, so please help him out and give him a warm round. And
Everybody turn off your cell phones, and please quiet your cell phones. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me all right? Yeah, how many of you were there 13 years ago in Branson? 1, 2. Look over here. Oh, 3. Okay, good. Well, that's good. It was a lot of fun. I was kind of excited about coming back to see and work with you guys again. And I'm at the airport, and there's a guy at the rental car counter with me. He's a few feet down. He's got a white beard. So what's the first thing I think of? Man, I was wrong. I said, "Are you here for the Santa convention?" And he just looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, "Okay, never mind." But that's sort of what you think about when you think you're going to be working for Santa's. And I promised, a lot of people don't know what I understand what I'm doing today, even though I told them. And I said, well, I'm going to take a few pictures and show you that I really am working with Santa's today. It's good to be back, and I hope that today will be really conversation. You've got a lot of stories. I've been doing this. I guess I was destined to start doing this when I was 8 or 9 when my sister died, and led me to have been working with hospice for 10 years in the grief center, and then teaching hospice in Michigan for 5 years. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today, I think is really important to understand is grief it lives with us all the time, right? Grief is a condition of living a long life and losing important things to us. And not even a long life. How many of you remember when you were kids that had, when you were like 5 or 6, had a pet die? Anybody? Okay. How about a family member? Okay. So lots of times as a young child, we experience grief for the first time and we don't have the tools to deal with it. And I firmly believe that there's a grief covenant in our bodies somewhere. And it basically holds the drops of water that come down over years. It's called cumulative grief. And at times our cups just get full. And that's when we start feeling a little out of balance, a little overwhelmed, a little emotional. And I think that's when we have to pay attention to how to take care of ourselves. That's when it's okay. I didn't, John first reminded me that he called. I didn't remember, but then I did remember the call. I remember it was about the school shooting, but I didn't remember that much after that, about what we had talked about specifically. But that's what we need to do. We need to have people that we can contact. We need to have people we can cry with. It's part of self-care. And that cumulative grief cup is always with us. There's no way to compartmentalize it. How many of you have cried at the wrong time, at the wrong place, with the wrong people, over the wrong issue? That's what happens. It's when we just find ourselves overwhelmed. And the cool thing is that, grief is not a DSM psychiatric condition. It's a condition of living. And thank God that we have this condition that allows us now, with the wisdom that all of you have developed over the years, to be able to get back in a way that, in such a powerful way, the things that you do. You look at the pictures, and you can think, oh God, this is hard, and I'm not sure I can do it. But then if not you, then who? And that's what I want you to think about over the course of what we're talking about today. If you're still not sure that maybe this is for you, let's see if I can get to. Well, that's not right. Hold on. Let me go back to, I thought that was the, hold on. Okay, so the good thing is that technical difficulties happen a lot. And we are going to figure out, you see that? Oh, is it right here?
Overlap a little bit through the little.
Well, that's the one when it's the slideshow shows this section here. How can I get rid of this?
What do you want to do? Use your arrow keys to.
I just want the slide presentation. I'm not sure that's it either. Now we lost it. Okay, well, but it is here, and we will figure out how to use it. I think it's this new computer that John got that is just really. Yeah.
Hey, where's our else? Our else should go.
We got gremlins instead of elves this year.
I know how he feels. I'm a substitute teacher. So I was supposed to I asked the students to help.
I just need to make sure to do a slide presentation, which is usually that. But it's
Good opportunity.
go to slide. Don't get rid of that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh wait, it's just showing that. It's not showing. Sometimes it's good to look at the big screen. What you're seeing here may not be. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, person, any questions, thoughts, concerns before we get started? Anything you'd really like to make sure we talk about today before we begin? You're just ready for anything? Okay, good.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned that grief is a condition of living. Have you ever talked about that to someone who's grieving?
Oh yeah, all the time.
And what do they say about that?
Well, initially, it doesn't do it much good. Because when we talk about the tasks of grief, especially as they relate to children instead of adults, but for adults, adults grieve intensely. And they're not interested in hearing, grief is a condition of living, aren't you glad to be alive? Be thankful for the time you had with them, God don't make mistakes, we can go on and on. All it does is piss them off. It's, as they get through some of the difficult parts of their grief, they can start to want to commemorate the life of the person that they lost. And then they're able to appreciate, because the first three tasks of grief are focused on what was lost, what was taken, what was stolen, what I'm living without, and and you're not happy. The last two pieces that we'll talk about are more about being able to remember with less pain, learning to commemorate, to find ways to celebrate who they were in my life and what parts of them still live through me. So it's a process. It's not, you can say things, but they're not going to hear them for a while. So sometimes it's better just not to say it for a while. But in counseling, I do a lot of clinical training for new counselors. And I always say, if you can think of one issue that a person comes into counseling for that is not loss related, I'd love to hear it. I've never had anybody who could come up with it. Life is a series of losses. And when we get our age, we've got a bucket full of stuff sometimes that we haven't completely resolved. And that affects us when we're reaching out and showing that kind of compassion and empathy for kids you visit, parents you're visiting. You know, it's hard not to connect sometimes and just let it be. I mean, I shed a tear in a session before with clients. And I don't think there's anything wrong with showing compassion and being touched by a story. But if by the end of your visit, you're bawling and the child's got his arm around you saying, "Don't worry, Santa, I'll get you through this," then something is going on. And that's okay, because grief is something you can deal with your whole life. It doesn't require therapy. It just requires a compassionate person to listen to you and talk about it. Especially as children when we experience grief. Because sometimes we learn things about grief that are inaccurate. And then we carry those things, even though developmentally we get older and we're more mature, we still carry some of those fears and anxieties from when we were kids dealing with it. And sometimes we just need to revisit it, reprocess it, developmentally resettle it on a different level. So anyway, so it's important that we, kind of acknowledge, what are the things that stop us from doing what we do. When you're visiting sick and bereaved children, the Santa on TV last night, when the 13-year-old is holding your hands and looking in your eye and saying, "I don't want to die." What do you do? I mean, sometimes words, but what is important? What did he do? He was there with them, and he was present in the face of those difficult questions. And that's the thing that you do that a lot of people can't do, is you keep coming back. You keep coming back to these difficult conversations, knowing you don't have the answers. And thank God you don't have to have the answers. All you have to do is be a presence with them. And that's a P-R-E-S-E-N-C-E, even though they expect the P-R-E-S-E-N-T-S from you because you're Santas. But the presence you bring and the compassion and empathy of just being with them is what matters. But that's tough because we're so used to talking, especially us men. We're talkers. We want to fix it. We want to make it better. And it's painful sometimes to just be with and feel that pain bumping up against you, when there's nothing you can do except being here with them. Yeah.
Trebek is from Jeopardy. Going through a terminal.
Yes. Yes.
He called the staff together and said, "Okay, I don't want to hear anybody saying he was taken too early, he was too young to die, blah, blah, blah." It was more or less, he says, "I'm 79. He says, "I've lived a wonderful life. I've seen things that a lot of people have never gotten to see." He says, "It's time." Yeah. And to me, that was a very lovely position.
But what do we know about his illness now? You heard the latest update.
He's in remission.
He's in remission.
No, I heard. Since that, he's back to treatment.
Oh, since that is back? Okay, so I'm behind the curve.
He's restarted chemo.
He's restarted chemo. So false positive that he was on the other side. Yeah, once you get in your 70s and 80s, all bets are off. I mean, anything that, even a little thing can take somebody, right? Isn't that true? You get a sore throat, you're going to be dead. And that's why you live so richly today, because you know that tomorrow's not promised. That's, you live in the moment. It's the great Buddhist perspective of just, you take care of this moment and everything's okay, the next moment will take care of itself. And it just kind of repeats. Anyway, so we're talking about, visiting sick and bereaved children and the great spirits. And we've talked about some of those things, and you don't always have the answers. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that is a great fear that you have?
I was afraid we'll probably touch on.
What's that? Go ahead. Go ahead.
When I was young, we go up here. I was surprised that after the funeral, memorial, and all that, everyone would gather usually at the house of the deceased. And what you heard more than crying was laughter. And I could not understand that. I thought, my gosh, this person, my grandmother just died. And as an adult, you realize that's the part that gets so many people through because you're starting to celebrate that person's life.
Right.
You always have so many stories.
But that can be confusing.
I mean, I'm scared when I die. I hope I'm not above hearing my stories.
Yeah. Well, you may be below hearing your stories, but you'll be there somewhere.
Well, that's probably the best thing is when just get together and talk and share their experiences, the funny stuff, the touching stuff.
But you can imagine how confusing that is for kids. Here's this big sad event, and now we're all laughing and eating. Oh, I don't get that. As adults, we get that, but kids may be very confused then. There was, how do kids learn? What do kids do regularly that they integrate into it to learn from their life experiences?
What do they see?
Yes, then how do they express it? Through play, right? So kids learn by doing stuff. They see something, it's like when they act like their mom or dad and going to the grocery store or going to work. Well, this family had just got home from the funeral. The father had died, and a lot of kids and cousins were there, and they were making coffee. They're all at the house eating. She's making coffee, and the kids are out in the backyard, and there's someone laying on the ground, and there's people on each side of them, and there's somebody in the middle with a book. And all of a sudden, she's trying to figure out what's going on, and then all of a sudden, the dead person gets up, grabs the Bible, and one of the other people falls in the hole to be dead. And what are they doing? They're reenacting what they just saw. And the parents are just appalled. They're saying, oh my God, how disrespectful is that? It has nothing to do with it. Kids were basically trying to make sense out of something they probably didn't get a lot of information about. And when kids don't get the information, they're going to make it up. And that's what happens. What were you going to say, sir?
That sounds stupid, but other way looking at the Webster, but can you define
bereavement?
Yeah.
Well, grief, we know that grief is what happens, what you experience when somebody or something you love is taken away from you or dies. Bereavement is the course of time from that death. It's a period of time.
The bereaved children.
Bereaved children are going through the process of learning what happened, what it means to them,
What their situation is.
and how it's going to affect their lives. So when kids are younger, and we're going to talk more about this, they're more worried about who's going to take care of them. They don't, they're concerned, but all they can tell is that people are really stressed and unhappy. Who's going to feed me? Who's going to change my diaper? Who's going to nurture me? But a kid in college or high school may be thinking, God, does this mean we're not going to Disney World this summer? The more immediate, how it's going to affect my life. So there's kind of a change. So that period of bereavement, based on developmental perspective, is going to vary between the ages. So it's a period of bereavement. And how long do you think the culture gives people to get over their grief? If you did a survey on a corner someplace downtown, and you ask people how long do you get?
72 hours.
72 hours. That's usually how much time you have off from work, right?
Yeah.
And we know that it's a 1 to 5 year experience. And if you add youth and trauma and violence, it maxes out to 5 years quite easily. We're not ready to do it. That's why what you do is so important. not just when it initially happens, but also just being aware of kids in your community who you visited once and you see again. You know, it's okay to say, so how are you doing since your dad died? How are things going? What's changed? You know, what's been the hardest part? What's been easier? What did you think would be hard, but you've been doing okay with? Kids want to share that with you. They want to share it with somebody. And sometimes you're the folks who go in there and are willing to do that. Yes?
Is this for children or adults alike?
Excuse me?
Is this for children or adults alike 5 years of grieving?
Well, you're getting ahead of me now. So let me get going here. So Santa's rules. So this is something that John already referred to a little bit. Don't fall apart. But it's okay to show some emotion. It really is. But if the kids comfort you at the end, then that's fine. Bring up the issue. Don't be afraid of the issue. Don't be afraid to use the word died or dead. They need the normal. Because what are some things that kids are told what happened to their loved one who's gone? They're with the angels. Yeah.
They're sleeping.
They're sleeping. And then that kid's told to take a nap. They're going, no, I'm not taking. What else? Expired. What's that?
Passed on.
Passed on. You know, I mean, I went to a funeral once and there was a phone, it was off the hook, and they said, Jesus called and he answered. You know, if you're a kid and you see these movies, these horror movies where somebody calls on the phone and says you're going to die, I wouldn't be answering the phone for a while after that either. So there's a lot of things that are inaccurate. And kids are very concrete. When you say something, I mean, parking meters expire, people don't. Now, passed on, we know, is from this world to the next. But a lot of people, especially kids, don't understand what that concept is. So using real words, I think, is helpful. Honor religious beliefs, and really with kids, don't even go there. Let them talk about it, but I wouldn't touch it because you might say something that could offend a parent. If they're very religious, it's a lose-lose in that situation. So just allowing the child to express. You know, Jesus needed another foot soldier in his army, and so I know he's not going to be able to coach my soccer team, you know, and that's upsetting to the child. Focus on the soccer team. Don't focus on the soldier and Jesus' army, because that may not go over well. So don't deal with religious issues. Now with adults, you can deal with spiritual issues. I've often said, tell me what about your faith is helpful right now. That's very neutral. Tell me what your faith is more difficult for you right now. And that way it kind of gives me a glimpse inside how their faith is either helping them or hindering in their grief for it. But with kids, you don't want to do that because parents don't like that. Be informed and prepared. Know what you're going into. Shouldn't be any surprises. Yeah, John.
Well, to be informed and be prepared, I think there's 1 or 2 places in the book, if not, data sheets that you can use with the children. But in addition, if you're working through a hospice organization, they will share with you basically the patient record, the front page. Not all the medical details, but you'll have information. So get all the information that you can and be prepared. But when you get to the door and knock on the door, forget it all. Because if you don't, you end up you can't be in the moment. You wind up thinking about what happened before you got there and thinking about what may happen after you leave. That's not your role. Your role is to be there right now. And wherever the child is, that's where you need to be. Not just physically, meaning standing, sitting, laying on the floor, climbing into a hospital bed. You need to be where the children are, physically and mentally and emotionally. So, like I said, learn all you can, but then forget it, because it's only going to distract you.
Yes.
In my position, we are the ones that notify as well. And I've had to do many notifications and going into an environment where either they don't know anything Santas and such, that one of the other things that we can do, the people that notify, the young policemen that had to go in and let the mother know that her son had died. When I do soldiers, I send soldiers out, let them know that their son or daughter has been killed, and such as that. It works is when we have to notify a parent that their child has died. So, those are the people need our support. Never go, like John says, never go into a place without doing your homework. We've had some very hostile situations where the wife and mother don't get along to the point of their fists. I've had people arrested on notifications, and always protect yourself. Sometimes they just want to hit somebody, don't care who it is,
Now, who would hit Santa?
Sergeant Reader. But do your homework, but stay in character is very important. Be informed. You may bump into HIPAA issues and everything on hospice. I inform hospice people quite a bit that deceased people don't entertain HIPAA rights anymore.
Yeah, deceased people don't sue you either. The other thing is pay attention to what that child may or may not know. It's not unusual to go to a hospice situation and the child doesn't know the person's dying. So you use terms like sick, getting sicker. What are some things you'd like to say or do with them before they get sick? Because they don't, it's really sad that the parents have a right to not tell kids things. And sometimes it's really unfortunate to come in there at the last minute. The parent is actively dying and the kid doesn't have any idea how sick they are. And that's just not fair to the child. But we don't set the rules, and people know what you can and can't say. So that's one of those things. Be sincere, be a good listener, be comfortable with quiet. Like again, your presence, the presence that when you ooze empathy, that speaks a lot to why you're there and the genuineness of your visit. And that can't be understated. And stay in character. Not all Santa's not always going to be happy all the time. Santa's going to be impacted by the kid's situation that he's visiting or the parent's situation that he's visiting, and it's okay. Yes?
Our Houston hospice training was very focused on was be a good listener. We have no idea what they have come from. Listen.
Yeah, and don't assume because you've been in a similar situation that there's the same dynamics in play, because they're so unique. So, being with a child who's been in foster care, the parents may have just gotten it back recently, and now the parents dying, just adds to the dynamic. So always be willing to hear what's going on. And again, sometimes it's just the listening to it for them to have someone to tell about what they've been through. And it just kind of emphasizes the intensity of the situation they're currently in. But every situation is different.